Hello, I've been flying my C1 Chaser plane quite a lot recently. It's like a bigger version of the Wing Z84, and it glides really, really well. So what I've been enjoying doing is going up nice and high and then just turning the motor off and seeing how long I can stretch it out for before I have to turn the motor on again. And one sunny day a while ago, I managed to glide for 11 minutes, so I must have been in some thermals or something, and it was a lot of fun. But one thing that I've kind of wanted to do is I like to switch between line of sight and FPV fairly regularly, just to sort of appreciate the form of looking at the plane flying around. I just like to look at it. It's a good looking plane. What I notice is that I can't take my eyes off my goggles for too long, because when I'm not looking at the FPV screen, the plane will tilt to one side or another, and if I haven't located it in the sky by that point, I'm going to have to quickly look at my goggles again and straighten it up before it starts to dive down to the ground. So what I started to think about doing is making a poor man's flight controller that consists of just a gyro and accelerometer, like a MPU 6050, just a simple breakout board, and see if I couldn't get the plane to just hold itself level for a while, 10-20 seconds, maybe something like that. That was all I was really wanting to do. And I've been thinking about it for a while, but what put me off is having to do the sensor fusion between the gyro and the accelerometer to get both of those numbers together to get a good reading on what attitude the plane was actually in. And about the same time, I discovered, a few years after it actually happened, that the DMP, I think it's digital motion processing documentation, for the MPU 6050 is actually released. This used to be some kind of a secret feature, I think. But what it lets you do is it basically does all the motion, does all the sort of Kalman filtering kind of thing inside the MPU 6050 itself, so that you can just get a quaternion out of it, and it will save you from having to do all that stuff in your own Arduino sketches or whatever you're making it with. And it'll actually give you better results too. There's a video here, I'll put a link to this in the description, and you can see that it gives you more accurate results and faster results, and you can also get a pretty good handle on the yaw position. Well, relative position, I guess it is for yaw. I did not use the yaw in this experiment that I've been doing, which maybe I should, because you'll see if you watch the rest of this video that I had a bit of a trouble that this probably could have solved, so that might be something I could do in the future. But for now, I've started off by keeping it about as simple as I could, and yeah, I had a few little issues that I've made some attempts to fix, but I have only done one test flight with it, so I'm not going to upload any source code in this video, because I did not keep a copy of the source code that I had that I tested for this flight. So if I was to upload the code I have now, it would be code that I have never even tried, so I don't really want to do that. But I will make a follow-up to this. Unfortunately, it was raining today, so I couldn't do it today. But on the next fine day, I will try my new code, and if that works better, I will upload that in a follow-up video. But anyway, I'll just show you a little bit about how it works, and then we'll look at the test flight. Okay, so I've got things into a state which I think is ready to go onto a plane for a test. But just before I do that, I'll show you a few things at the desk, because it's easier for me to demonstrate it with it connected to the computer, so that we can see the Arduino serial monitor there. Sorry about the noise in the background. It's that noisy power supply that I'm using to supply the 5 volts for the servos there, but we'll just have to put up with it. So none of the stuff that I'm using here is actually what I'm going to be using on the plane. So these servos I will not be using, the receiver I will not be using, and actually this transmitter as well I will not be using. But basically it should all work the same when it goes onto a plane. So what I have running here is pass-through mode at the moment. So you can see when I pitch up, both the servos go the same way. When I roll, they go the other way. So that's the Elevon mixing working. Well, I may actually have to reverse one of them when it goes on the plane, depending on which way the servo is mounted on the plane that I'm going to use it with. So that's just pass through. No trims, no special rates or expo or anything. It's just completely passing through this channel to the servo directly, apart from the Elevon mixing, of course. And the numbers that we are looking at on the screen on the Arduino serial monitor are the current roll angle and pitch angle that the IMU is telling us. And you can see that's it here. It is a little bit off to the side, and it's crooked. If I put that flat onto the desk, roughly, we should get about 0 and 0 in those first two numbers. So just let it sit back up there so that it's off a bit. Now if I switch this switch down to the middle position, I will be in attitude hold mode. And you can see that the servo suddenly moved over because the next two numbers on this display are my desired roll and pitch angles, and I've desired to be keeping the plane perfectly level. And since it's not level, because the sensor is on an angle, the servos have moved to the position that will hopefully bring the plane to level. And you'll see that if I put the sensor flat down on the desk again, those sensors, the servo arms should move to roughly vertical again. Or, well, they're not perfectly vertical, but pretty close to vertical. And if I hold the IMU flat on the desk like that and move my roll stick to the right, you'll see I've now said that the angle of the plane should be 20 degrees angled to the right. So that's, well, 19, you know. So one of those servos, oh, it's roll, so both of them are moving. And they have to move because it thinks that the plane is not moving, so the servos have to move to make the plane roll to the right. So that's, say, 35 degrees or so to the right, and the servos have gone off center to make that happen, but it's not happening because this is stuck to the desk. But if I move it, if I roll it that way about 35 degrees, you'll see that the servos come back to the middle, thinking that they have done their job and they don't need to do anything now. And if I shake this around a bit, you'll see the servos moving in that direction. It's a bit harder to do it with pitch direction, but you can see that they go the same way when I change it with pitch direction. So the pitch is responding correctly as well. So that is attitude hold. And I've made it so that you can go only 75 degrees over. I don't want the IMU, I don't know what the numbers are going to be like if it actually goes upside down, because I'm not using a proper quaternion. Though part of the processing, it uses a quaternion to get these final pitch and roll numbers, but once you get it into a pitch and roll, you might get stuck with some sort of gimbal lock when it goes up completely upside down. So I don't want it to go more than 75 degrees off level. So that's that there, and it takes about that long to go from positive 75 degrees to negative 75 degrees. So it's a little bit on the slow side perhaps. It might feel strange to fly compared to what I'm used to. And pitch limits are to about, so this should be pitching up at 60 degrees and pitching down at 45 degrees. I figured that it probably wasn't. Actually, I might have got those the wrong way around. But anyway, I think that the pitch angle limits should be a little bit less aggressive than roll. We'll see. Anyway, it should work out. So I can get that back to have enough precision that I can put it on 0 if I'm careful. So I think this should be decent enough to control it in the sky and get the angle to set to exactly what I want. Now, the third mode here is my failsafe or glide circle mode. So when I switch this down to the bottom position, we'll see that the desired roll and pitch angles will change to a slight bank to the left of 5 degrees and a slight pitch down of 2 degrees. Wait a minute, that's backwards, isn't it? Because when I pitched forwards I had... Hang on a minute. And you'll see that when I switch back to the attitude hold mode, it sets those to 0, just in case you had the numbers from last time and you suddenly bank to that angle. Now what did I do? Pitch forward. Oh, pitching forward is positive, so looks like this -2 should actually be a positive 2 for pitching downwards. But anyway, a slight bank to the left and a slight pitch downwards is what's going to happen either when I put it into this position or when I get a failsafe situation. And the throttle will also go to 0 at that point as well, but I'm just not showing any throttle numbers on here. Apart from what I just said about the throttle going to 0 in this mode, the throttle is also just passed through directly. And the only other thing to look at is that when we're in this attitude hold mode, each plane will be a bit different, and I don't really know if this 5 degrees roll and 2 degrees pitch down is actually going to be a good angle for this plane to do a slow spiral glide. So what I want to do is put it into attitude hold mode, and maybe it's maybe the plane that I'm using is more like 11 degrees left roll and 4.5 degrees pitch downwards is a better angle to hold a nice slow downward spiral glide. So I can set it to that manually, whatever I want, and then I'll flip this switch down and you'll see a little line of text will quickly disappear off the top of the screen, but you should be able to see it. And what that did is it wrote these two numbers here to the EEPROM, so that if I start this program again, wonder if I can do that by doing this. No. Okay, I'll start it again by re-uploading the sketch. Here we go. So when this starts, hopefully the sketch will start. There we go. See the stored angles there? Whoops. Just scroll up. So we have stored angles. It's just going to print those out when it starts the program. So this is coming from the EEPROM. So now when I get back inside, after determining what is a good glide spiral angle for this particular plane, I can set that as the angle to use for my failsafe settings. Anyway, that's how it's all going to work, so let's go and put it on a plane. Alright, I have everything installed in the actual plane that I'm going to use this with now, and there was a convenient little ledge there for the IMU to go on. It seems to be perfectly level when the plane is pretty much level, and there's a nice left to right, flat edge there that you can press it up against to make sure that the roll direction is going to be correct as well, or whatever. It's going to be square to the direction that the plane is travelling, so that's quite handy. And I had to fiddle around quite a bit getting the elevon mixing correct with the new servos, and getting everything to match up correctly, but pretty sure I have it working now. I had to hard code some rate reduction for the pass-through mode because it was just obscenely high travel, and now this is a 30% reduction and it's still quite high, but this is about what I had it with my normal elevon mixing with the normal receiver settings before. By the way, you have to remove the elevon mixing from this when you're flying this. You just give it normal pitch and roll instructions for each channel. So this is pass-through, and then if I switch into attitude hold, and I'll just flick the stick down a little bit, and you can see how the elevons will stay there now, but they'll stay there until I what did I do? Down. So I want it to pitch up, right? So if I grab the plane and pitch it up a bit, you'll see that when I get to the angle that was the whatever pitch that I input, the elevon will go back to the neutral position. And if I put it down flat again, that will come up like that. Not quite the same on that side, but I think it'll be right. So it's a kind of a funny thing. You're not going to be able to use any trims in pass-through mode, but when you're in this attitude hold mode, you don't need trims. So it's kind of a funny thing like that. At least I hope that's how it works. And when I go into the failsafe mode, we'll see. Actually, you won't see much because the plane's kind of level, but it moves a little bit. So if I wanted to get that level, if I wanted it to get it back into the neutral position there, you can kind of see that the plane is going to be about like that. So that's going to be my downward spiral glide position. A couple of other things I had to change while I was twiddling around today was that the servos that I'm having here are a little bit different to the ones that I was using while I was testing at the desk. Seems like different servos like to have a different frequency of pulses. Usually you can manage with 50 Hertz, but I found that 50 Hertz made these move a little erratically. They moved, but they weren't very smooth at all. And 250 Hertz, which is what I was using with the ones that I showed you at the desk before, they moved quite smoothly, but occasionally they get sort of a bzzz noise like that, and they wouldn't move at all, just for 2 or 3 seconds, and then they'd come right. I didn't like that, but I found that at 100 Hertz, they seem to be okay. So they are those servos, just in case it makes any difference. And the other thing I found out to my disappointment was that this receiver is only giving 6 pulses for ppm output, and I could have sworn that these gave you 8 channels for ppm, and this is the
radio that has the modification that should give you 8 channels for ppm as well. So I don't know why it was only giving 6 channels for ppm, but what that means is that I'm only going to have my switches. I was planning to be able to use these dials for dialing down the gains, just in case the response was too much, but I'm not going to be able to do that, so it's just going to be flying with full gains for this run. On the bright side though, there's no wind. So this is going to be great weather for this test. That should go well. I'm anticipating it will be a roaring success. So let's give it a try. Oh. Okay. If I let it go, oh, it's trimmed quite nicely. That's lucky. Okay, so I'll just put it into the attitude hold mode right here. Hands off. Oh, the gains are a bit high, I think. Not bad. Sorry, let's get away from the sun. Okay, that's hands off. Pitch down a bit maybe. Ah, it's really good. I'm barely touching the sticks, I'm just sort of tapping it a little bit here and there, see? No hands. Straighten up a bit. Oops, back the other way. Oh, that didn't hold too well, did it? I think it's climbing. It's not actually holding roll very well. Yeah, it's climbing. But generally, look. Yeah, the roll is drifting, eh? I wonder why that is. So it's not that great actually. I mean, it's nice and smooth, but as far as being fit for purpose for holding a steady angle and doing a long slow glide, I don't know. Alright, let's try the failsafe mode here. Bang. Motor off, gliding, slightly banking to the right. Left, I mean. Okay, that's not going to work. Alright, so that angle was way too steep for a slow glide. Oops, shit, lost my orientation. Wow. All I could see was the silhouette and I lost my orientation, that's all it was. Pass through mode at the moment. Okay, back to stabilized. Back to pass through to pull up. It's not that the stabilized mode is not working well, it's just that I'm not used to flying a plane in angle mode. So, alright, let's put it over there and let's try the stabilization mode again there. Pitches down a bit much, I think. Now it's pitching up too much. Alright, well, I think it's working nice enough that I'm going to try this FPV and I won't have any trouble. So let's bring it in for a landing. Stabilized mode. Ha! No, the roll, man, it's really not holding the roll at all. A little surprised there. Just bring it back in pass-through mode again. It's nice to have that as an emergency. Okay, now land in stabilized mode. Nah, it's slow to. It's a little bit slow to react in stabilized mode. So yeah, I was hoping that I could do nice, long, slow glide landings in stabilized mode and just, you know, basically land hands off. But seems like that might not happen. Anyway, let's try some FPV. Okay, switching to FPV here. Have a look at the sunset. It's just getting into that nice phase where everything turns red. And let's just put it here and will it stabilize? Oh, it's really diving down, eh? That's good. So when you're in FPV, now I'm totally hands off for the last 20 seconds or so. Still hands off, but I'm going to have to turn around here. Okay, hands off. Still hands off. And straighten up. Oops, that's not straight. Okay, straighten up, let go. Yeah, look at it rolling over. That is not good. Why is it doing that? Okay, let me just put it straight again. And okay, hands off. Seems like it prefers to roll to the right. But I would have thought that at some point the accelerometer would detect that it's not in the right angle and it would fix it, but it just seems to keep rolling further and further to the right, like this. This is all hands off here. Right, now let me switch into my failsafe mode. Oh, nothing changed. Oh, it's turning to the left, yep. Okay. Okay, that's not terrible, but it's turning more and more and more to the left, isn't it? So that's not good. Alright, back to stabilize mode. And better just bring it back over here. I think there is a little bit of wind, it may be pushing me over there. Alright, let's see if I can record some values into the EEPROM about what I would prefer as a glide mode rather than those default numbers that I'm using. So I'm in stabilize mode or attitude hold mode, and I'm going to turn the motor off because that affects the glide slope a bit. And let's, oh, fully back on the stick. Alright, and I'm going to, right about there, I'm going to record those numbers. So it should be rolling to the right a little. Now I'm hands off again, gliding. Yeah. Just sort of glides, I mean it rolls further and further to one side, which is not good at all. I wonder why. I guess the accelerometer is not feeling true gravity when it's riding on the plane like this, eh? That might have something to do with it. Maybe it should be paying more attention to the gyro than to the accelerometer. Still, this is pretty good. Hands off here. At times it can hold this level for a long way. I'm starting to get a bit low there, so motor back on. Turn to the, oops, more motor. Okay, come back this way, pitch down a little, keep it in center please. Okay, hands off. Yeah, it's drifting. Bummer. So it's not going to be as useful as I thought. In fact, it's not really that much better than having no auto stabilization at all. Oh yeah, it is. Let me just flip out of attitude hold and then back into it again, like this, and see if it straightens up at all. So the roll straightens up, pitch seemed to straighten up a little bit after a while. I haven't touched it since I did that switch flip, by the way, so it's not doing too bad. Wow, just looking at it line of sight, it looks really solid and stable. Oh, this is good. So I guess it's like, it's better than not having it, This is all hands off. Getting a little bit far away though, so let me just turn here. And there, hands off there. And straighten up and hands off here, hands off. So hopefully I can get back, all the way back here without touching it. No, it's drifting to the right. Damn. I wonder... So I'm bringing it back myself here. Now, I'll just face it towards me and do that flip in and out of stabilize mode again, and okay, hands off from here. That looks better, I think. Still going to the right though, eh? Yeah. Yeah. I really thought that would work nicely, but hands off. Looks like it could use a... I don't know, what are you supposed to do about that? If it's not feeling true gravity, how can you really... I mean, you could use the gyro only and just sense the gravity at the beginning of the flight and then ignore the accelerometer thereafter. But you'd have to really trust the gyro. See, every time I let it go, it wants to go to the right. Maybe this is just an aerodynamic thing that we can't fight. Whoops. Okay, I think that's enough for this evening. I'll do a little bit more testing tomorrow maybe and see how it goes with the sun high in the sky so that we don't have this sun in the camera like that. Hands off. It's pretty good sometimes. Like, not sure what the wind is doing up there. I can't feel any wind up here. Now it's turning to the left, see? I'm just going to let it turn back. Seems like it holds pitch quite well. It's only the roll that drifts. That's nice. This is a good circle. I'm going to reset my EEPROM values to this value, whatever it is. Okay, we're going over the neighbour's property here, so I'm going to have to turn back and see if I can't get it to stay straight, heading straight at me here. And hands off. That looks good. I can feel some wind now. So right now we're heading perfectly upwind. Into the wind, that is. And probably climbing a little bit here too, because this camera is not exactly pointing level. It's actually pointing down a little bit due to the way it's mounted on the top of the plane that slopes down. Oh, this is good. Ooh. Might just bump the pitch down a little bit because it's getting kind of high. There we go. Nice. Okay, and I'm going to cut the motor here, see what it does. Pitches down a bit, turns to the left. Okay, I'm going to reset my glide number to this one, my EEPROM values, because this is actually in a glide, which is what we want when it's fail-safing. Oh, look at that. Bit bumpy. Probably what it's doing here is it has the pitch stick fully back, because what I've noticed with this plane is that when you want to do a long glide, you just pull the pitch stick all the way back and it will just sort of float around and you can still steer left and right, but that makes it come down really, really slowly. So that's probably what it's doing, except it's going, the wind is pushing it a little bit further over in that direction than I would like. So I'll just have to turn the motor back on and bring it back again. Okay, Alright, that was all hands off. But I'm going to put the motor back on. Where is it? I'm just trying to find it, line of sight. Where is it? Oh, okay, I see it. Oh, it's doing well. Anyway, so back home. Wonder if I can glide home from there. No, probably not. Okay, motor back on. This is all hands off. I think I know what's going on. When I do a roll input, when I take my hand off the stick, it hasn't actually completed meeting the roll angle that I told it to. So when I take my hand off the stick, it's actually going to be going a little bit further than I wanted. Whereas if I do what I did just now, which was use the switch to reset the roll angle to 0, it keeps the roll a lot better, although it's still going to the left now. This may be just the wind. Okay, let's go back this way. Pitch up a little. Roll left. Okay, now I'm going to reset it here. See if it straightens up. Not really. Still going to the... Well, it's going to the right. Yeah, it's going with the wind every time it's doing this. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that the wind would affect the yaw direction of the plane that much, but it definitely does. Okay, got to come back. Hands off. See if it can turn all the way back to me. Pitch down a bit. Hands off. It's definitely a lot more relaxing to fly than having to do the whole thing yourself all the time. Left bank a little bit. There we go. Stop. Right a little bit. Left a little bit. It's pretty good. Reset to 0. Pitch up a bit. Yeah, it seems to work fairly well. Well, now it's turning into the wind. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be able to hold its roll very well. But fortunately, the pitch is quite stable, which is probably a bit more important than keeping roll stable. Well, they're both important, aren't they? Alright, it's getting a bit dark, so I'm going to land now. And I'll see if I can land in stabilized mode. Just go all the way out there and I'll come back. See if I can do a nice long low landing. A low landing, yeah. The landing is always low, you know what I mean. A low glide down to the landing. So I'm in stabilized mode here, but I'm continuously giving inputs to now reset the roll. Okay, a bit of shaking there, maybe the gains are a bit high. It's going to the left. Let's fix that. Still going to the left. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Okay, throttle down. throttle back, gliding. No, not to there. Yeah, it's a little bit easier to land like that, I guess. Didn't really make too much difference. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. Might do a bit more testing of this in the future, probably tomorrow, and we'll see if it gets any better. If it does, I'll let you know.
Now, if anybody's still watching after all that, you are probably quite interested in this, so I thought I would add a little bit of extra discussion of some of the details at the end here in an effort to cut down on the comments that are going to tell me things that I already know. So I've changed my mind, and I will actually upload this code that I have here. This is the untested stuff that I've already made a few modifications to, but if you want to know the details, you can look at this and yeah, look at it to your heart's content. You'll know everything that's going on, and you won't need to ask me too much about it for now. But the biggest problem I think I had was that the plane, the accelerometer, is not sensing true gravity. It's not sensing which way it's directly down. Anybody who's flown on a plane in bad turbulence will know that you don't always feel the correct Earth's gravity when the plane's bouncing up and down and doing turns and stuff. Like fighter pilots, when they're doing high G turns, they always get pressed down into their seat rather than, you know, getting pressed in the direction of the Earth's gravity. So that was probably the main problem, I think, which prevented the plane from being able to hold itself nice and level. Not really sure what to do about that. I don't have any ideas. Another problem I could have been having was that I did not calibrate this gyro. And I'm using the, what is this here? I2C dev library. Very handy, and this is basically just a little bit cut and paste out of the MPU 6050 DMP example. And there's a few lines here where you are supposed to set these for your own gyro offsets. I did not do that, I just used those. I probably should have set them to 0, I suppose, might have been a little bit closer to what it's likely to be, but I don't know. So I'll do that properly next time. That might help a little bit. And the other couple of things I've changed is that when you let when you let go of the stick, what I was doing, as we saw in my demo where we were looking at the serial monitor before, is I was just recording the desired pitch as the user had changed it with the stick. When they let go of the stick, it would just record whatever the desired pitch was. But it would be much, much better if the current pitch or roll, whatever, the current angle was recorded instead of whatever the user was trying to input, because this desired angle would not yet have been reached because it has a bit of a delay. So whatever you see in your FPV goggles is not what you're going to be setting as the desired angle, whereas really you should be setting the current angle as what you want to keep, because that's what you've already seen in your goggles as you're flying. So I changed that, and also was storing in EEPROM the desired angles instead of the current angles. So I'm storing the current angles in EEPROM. I changed a couple of other little things here and there too, but those are the main things. So yeah, if anybody feels like looking at that and giving me some tips, especially what to do about not feeling the true gravity, because I've noticed that the iNav flight controller does a pretty good job of that somehow, and I haven't really bothered to look into it. Maybe I should look into it properly. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this video, so thanks for watching, and I'll keep you updated.